What's old is new again, and today, let's do another nerdy video talking about why the Street Fighter story is better than you think. So I've done videos like this before, of course, but gotta keep the channel active, and seemingly I make a video about this once a year now, so now another video about this. Remember, if you like the videos, like, sub, like, comment, share. Support the channel if you can. I appreciate it. Thanks, Super Chat, PayPal, Patreon, whatever. I know some people like the nerdy videos, so let's go. So before Street Fighter started retconning everything and changing characters, stories, etc., the actual story of Street Fighter has a pretty good foundation to build off of despite seemingly being simple. Remember that although Ryu might seem generic to some, although I actually prefer to think of Ryu as a classic character rather than a generic one, but some people might say that Ryu is, generic from a storytelling perspective, or maybe he doesn't grow as a character, and God forbid, maybe you're actually one of those people that actually thinks evil Ryu gives Ryu depth, which I'll get into later. But Ryu, from a story sake perspective, Ryu doesn't actually need to grow as a character because he is the ideal character already, if you will. It's the other characters in the story of Street Fighter that grow from him, because he is that ideal that these other characters are striving to be. Ryu himself doesn't need to grow in this sense to be a compelling character because he already is the end goal of everyone else, so to speak. And you can actually get a good story out of Street Fighter just by having the rest of the cast grow through their interactions with Ryu, right? So remember that after the retcon of Street Fighter and changing Ryu into this wandering whisper of a hero, this unbeatable badass who is always striving to be the best he can be, even though he is the best, right, in the original sort of Street Fighter 2 idea of Ryu, right? He still keeps trying to push himself farther, even though he's the best, even though that nobody can beat him, even though he humbles all other people around him, right? Like people like Sagat that thought they were the best. Others, seek him out just to have a chance at meeting him, at fighting him, right? But with the change to Street Fighter's story, what it is now, and Ryu's character, as I've said many times, changing Ryu's character makes the whole Street Fighter 2 story make absolutely no sense. Changing Ryu to a guy who randomly goes evil and legit never beats anybody. I mean, he's never even actually beat Sagat legitimately, right? It absolutely destroys the story. The shoryuken is no longer a legendary attack that the world has never seen before. A attack that in the original story that other characters like Sagat, even if you are old enough to remember the original story of Street Fighter 2, right? Other characters tried to copy Ryu, just like Sagat in his original bio. The whole reason that he made a tiger uppercut was because the world had never seen a move like the Dragon Punch before. So he tried to make a move that could compete with Ryu, right? Now the story of the Dragon Punch is Ryu, he just cheap shotted Sagat when he wasn't ready. Which again, if that's the case, why would Sagat turn to a life of crime when he wasn't even legit beaten, right? You want the reader or the person that is invested in Street Fighter to somehow believe that there is a world champion in the world of fighting, and he beat up some guy, Ryu, and then when he went to give him his hand, hey, sorry, I beat you so bad that he got cheap shot by a Dragon Punch, and now to cope, he sells drugs. That it doesn't make sense, dude. Why is everyone so obsessed with Ryu when he seemingly doesn't actually legitimately beat anybody unless he turns grumpy and starts throwing an evil fireball? Ryu in this new story of retconning Street Fighter, since Street Fighter Alpha 2 has gotten worse and worse, right? Ryu has devoted his entire life to martial arts to the point that the motherfucker is homeless and he still can't win without turning evil. There are no redeeming qualities about Ryu. He has massive L's throughout this. He's a massive L as a person, right? Why isn't Bison obsessed with Ken? I mean, why does he want Ryu's body? I mean, Ken doesn't even take fighting seriously like Ryu, and he still wins. It seems like, Ken is a little bit more naturally talented than Ryu because, again, Ryu is a terrible character now. He's a terrible idea of a main character. He's a character that has devoted his life to an endeavor and done nothing. And he gets mad like a child when he can't win. It's terrible. Again, evil Ryu right from the get-go just destroys the entire idea of Street Fighter, right? So let's go back though. How I would change Street Fighter, right? So let's go back and you can see this image. Let's focus on sort of the symbolism that we already have in the original Street Fighter story, right? And again, Ryu is not the character that grows in the story. It's the characters around Ryu that grow, dude. Okay? So let's say you could have a movie, like a miniseries, whatever it might be, and focus it on the idea of, again, that Ryu and Akuma are getting ready for their climatic battle, right? And you can tell that story through, again, as I said, symbolism, right? As I show Ryu and Sagat right here and Akuma, after he killed his master and his brother and he steals the big beaded necklace, right? You can tell this story through a lot of symbolism, right? So you have flashbacks to Sagat, the world champion of fighting. And at the time, the king of fighters who was humbled by this unknown martial artist with attacks that up until that time, the world had never seen. Show Ryu DPing Sagat. Show the blood splatter from the Dragon Punch, right? An amazing attack that no one had ever seen before. And you can focus on how that changed Sagat, right? Sagat now lives the rest of his life with a scar on his chest from the mother of all Dragon Punches up until that time, right? The move literally changed his life, right? It disfigured him. And this led him down to a path of destruction and evil, right? You could even throw in some jokes if you want to, how after that it seemed like there's always a new fighter trying to have a fireball and a Dragon Punch, right? A little kind of joke for the people that play video games, right? Everyone was trying to do their own version of the Dragon Punch. Show some commentary how Sagat tried to make his own Tiger Uppercut. I mean, it was the original reason in the story why he did it, right? But he just couldn't keep up with Sagat. And his ego is now forever scarred onto his chest, right? I mean, that's Sagat right there. That was the original story. I remember the Bible reading it as a kid. And he just went crazy, right? And if we look at Akuma right here, right? Then you can focus on Akuma, right? The next side of the story, right? Because again, these are the characters, examples of characters that are growing through their interactions with Ryu, right? So show Akuma focusing on being able to use his techniques in ways that can kill people, right? Show Ryu focusing on bettering. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped ahead. I actually wrote this down, right? Next on the flip side again, you show Akuma. You show flashbacks to Akuma beating his master, right? Beating his brother. Whereas Sagat, you focused on the scar on his chest, right? This sort of symbolism, right? At first, focus on Akuma and show Akuma that after beating his master and his brother, show him taking that big prayer beaded necklace, right? After killing them. Akuma wears this necklace as a trophy, right? Think of this as some symbolism to come later, right? He wears this as a trophy for what he thinks of him as now being the strongest in the world. Show him seeking for someone strong enough to be able to beat him. And eventually he starts becoming obsessed with the idea that no one will ever be able to beat him unless they are willing to kill him because he's just that strong. It has to be a fight to the death. Again, I hate the idea of evil Ryu, but you can hint at the idea that Akuma wants Ryu to use their style of martial art in the killing fashion, right? Because he feels that no other fighter, as he's been traveling the world, will ever be able to give him that sort of death match that he wants, right? And you show Akuma focusing on being able to use those techniques in ways that can kill people, right? Show, images or videos or whatever of Ryu focusing on bettering himself, finding versatile ways of using his techniques, right? A super hurricane kick that sucks you in, electric fireballs, a flaming fireball. That sounds a little silly, but a flaming fireball, right? Red fireball, right? A different variety, a different flair to that same sort of move set that Akuma has, but it's not anything that will kill you, right? Show Akuma getting more and more obsessed waiting for this death match, right? Show him traveling alone, again, becoming more and more obsessed. I need this death match. And then you also show Ryu, although he's traveling alone, you can show that he's making friends along the way and that people are actually inspired by his dedication, right? Ryu is dedicated to being the best he can be, being the strongest fighter he can be without actually killing anybody, right? And then finally you get to these two badass motherfuckers, right? They're getting ready for their death match, right? Have Akuma upset that Ryu won't use any killing versions of their techniques. He can try to taunt him, whatever he wants, whatever you think might be more interesting for the movie, whatever, right? He's trying to bring out the killer instinct in Ryu. Maybe he could try to threaten to kill Ryu's friends, Ken, whoever it might be, Sakura, right? But Ryu is stoic. He's like, I would never fight to kill somebody, right? Because Ryu doesn't need that weakness. Ryu doesn't need to grow as a character in that way. Because again, Ryu, these other characters are growing through Ryu, right? As the fight goes on, you could have moments like say, oh geez, I don't know, it's an anime, right? You could have this little thing right here, right? This is fine, right? It's an anime, right? You could say Ryu does a Shinku Hadouken at some point, right? Have it be a laser beam, like the verse stuff. Have Akuma checks him with his Mesatsu Go Hadouken, his laser beam version, right? Have a small little laser beam battle and the onlookers are looking on, right? And you could even have Akuma win it, right? An explosion afterwards. And who knows, you have Ken or Sakura or even Sagat in the background watching. Maybe Sakura does some sort of cliche anime thing like, oh my God, Ryu died, ah! But then the smoke clears, right? And Ryu is still standing. And the narrative of that, you could have it, and maybe it's explained or maybe it's not if you want to have a little dialogue with the other characters watching, right? You could show Sakura maybe is afraid because she's like, oh, it just shows Akuma is too strong for you. Ryu can't beat him, right? He beat him in that little beam struggle. But then show the actual vibe is maybe Sagat or Ken says it. But they're like, no, Akuma just shot a fireball, their killing version of the laser beam fireball. But although he beat Ryu in that little battle, it didn't actually kill Ryu. Ryu is actually still standing, right? Maybe at some point you have Ryu, he starts to charge up the Dinjin Hadouken, right? Make it really slow like the anime, right? Just see little sparks flying around him, lightning things, right? And he's trying to fend off Akuma while he's like charging this thing up, right? Finally, Akuma gets cocky. He's like, I don't care what the fuck you're trying to do because I know you can't beat me. Throw this electric fireball shit. Even though Akuma's like, what? I don't care if it's an electric fireball because he's overconfident now, right? And so he threatens Ryu to fire it and he doesn't even try to dodge it and he blocks it, right? But then, throw back to the video game, guess what? Akuma tries to block the electric fireball, but guess what? It sort of like fucks his shit, right? So then throughout the fight, right, he starts... I'm not saying he's like in rigor mortis or anything like that, but he starts like getting numb. His body starts becoming numb and it starts to like slow him down. And during the fight, you can see Ryu starts to take the advantage then, right? Akuma starts having like, oh shit, I underestimated, just like Sagat did, right? Ryu a little bit, right? He can feel his arms and legs are a little bit slower and weaker, right? You could show Akuma now when he's doing teleports and everything like that. Who knows, maybe Ryu, he does his super hurricane kick, right? Akuma's doing all these teleports and he's trying to like act all fancy back and forth, but Ryu's super hurricane kick, it's actually sucking Akuma in. Akuma can't even get away from him. You could try to throw in some fun ways to, do these different anime attacks, right? So, again, Akuma starts feeling like, I foolishly tried to block this attack and I didn't realize I wasn't going to be able to block it. And it was actually just to like shock my system to make me slower, right? And then maybe at some point, maybe Akuma goes for the Raging Demon, right? Akuma goes for the Raging Demon, but his reflexes are slow just a little bit, right? Just a little bit. That once he gets closer to Ryu hits him with the shoryuken. The Super Dragon Punch, the first version of this attack ever in the story, right? And the impact of the move is so great. You see, it shakes the entire battlefield. Blue flashes of light like the Marvel thing, right? And it shakes the battlefield and everything so bad, extremely badly, whatever. And you see it actually explodes Akuma's necklace off his like body when he gets hit by the Dragon Punch, right? Then, right? The symbolism here is, guess what? We go back, look at that. The symbolism of Sagat is left with a scar because of his, overconfidence, his ego. And what originally in the story, the movie was being shown, Akuma was wearing his beaded necklace as a trophy, right? Akuma, when he finally wakes up, he's like, oh shit, right? The symbolism being, and again, you're showing in flashbacks, Sagat scarred from the battle, right? Now Akuma, shown in the flashback, he was so happy that he killed his brother and his master, and he was wearing this thing as a trophy, right? This wasn't a trophy. It was a scar. Boom, boom, boom. Do you see? Boom. Akuma killed his own brother and his master, and now he's been living with this burden, this scar, because he thought that that made him the best. And now Ryu shattered that. Ryu beat Akuma without having to kill him. Right? Again, he got overconfident. He did a laser beam Hadouken, right? Whatever you want to say, and didn't beat him. And he's like, fine, hit me with one of your like silly Hadoukens that you think changed it, right? And he foolishly blocked that electric Hadouken, and it fucked him up through the rest of the match, right? He was slow. His reflexes got slow. And then finally, when he went to go hit the Shungoku Satsu, whatever, he was just a little bit too slow because his reflexes were worse, even when he finally got the chance to do it, and Ryu hit him with the Super Dragon Punch and exploded his necklace all over. He hits the ground, and when he actually wakes up later, he sees that necklace, right? That necklace wasn't a trophy. It was actually a scar, and he starts to regret, and he's like, I've lived a bad life. I'm a bad man. He's like, this was not a trophy, but again, a scar, just like how Sagat wore his scar, metaphorically speaking, right? Akuma's been wearing this scar now, right? Ryu didn't have to kill him to beat him. He proved he was the best without actually having to kill him, right? And that's why I say that Ryu is not a character that needs to grow, because he is the ideal character. You can show Ryu leaving as he does after every battle to find somebody stronger, to always be the best version of himself, right? Akuma lost because of his overconfidence, right? And as Ryu walks away, you can show Akuma left alone, right? Akuma made no friends on his journey, right? You could show, again, Ryu walks away. Maybe Akuma walks away, and Akuma has that big, super big ground explosion punch move, whatever that he has, like the Kongo Kokuretsu-san, something like that, right? And show Akuma, he makes that attack, right? And you could see him like actually looking up to Ryu, and he's like, I'm going to make an attack. It won't kill you, but I need to find an attack that is just like Ryu. Attacks that don't kill you, but are like the strongest that no one else has ever seen before, right? Just like the shoryuken is the strongest dragon punch that could not kill somebody, but it just knocks them out. Maybe Akuma, maybe that's why he makes that big ground splitting punch, because like, I need to make attacks that are the strongest that the world has ever seen, but won't kill you. Just something like that, right? I need to find an attack that won't kill you like the Shungoku Satsu, but something that is still stronger than the world has ever seen, right? Again, now Ryu has inspired Akuma to find new techniques and to be the best person he can be. And that's why I always say that Street Fighter actually doesn't have a terrible story if you tell it like that, right? Evil Ryu makes the story make no sense, right? So many characters in the movie or in the series, they actually have no reason for doing the things they do, because characters are automatically related to Ryu, but Ryu is not a, endearing character. He's a jobber. He has no redeeming qualities. He's a big baby. Whereas Ryu before, although you might, if you're negative, you might say he's generic, but you need to give characters something to inspire to be. And Ryu can be that character. You could show, like I said here, you could tell it through two different perspectives, the perspective of Sagat and the perspective of Akuma. They grew through Ryu, right? Anyway, remember, if you like the videos, like, sub, comment, share, support the channel if you can. I appreciate it. Thanks. The end.